thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. This is the May 2024 SaaS deal review. We've done a few of these in the past. We like to do them bi-monthly. So a couple weeks time from now, you'll see another one. About a month from today, you'll see one past that. So love that you all arrive and take the time out of your day to come and hang out with us. And we love doing these too. My name's James. I'm the general counsel here. I've been at Acquire.com for a couple years, 2.5 years now, which in startup time kind of feels like a decade, if I'm being honest. My background is sort of a smattering of private practice work that includes commercial defense litigation, M&A, capital markets, startups, and securities financing. So a lot of that. I've also worked in-house at Amazon.com. And then also F5 Networks, which is a Seattle local company, but they started in the internet boom in the late 90s, and they make just really badass modems and hard drives. So here's just a really quick agenda here. Obviously, introductions. We're about 2/3 of the way through there, 1/3, I mean. Here to see some deals. We're going to bring up live deals that we recommend, that we enjoy looking at, that we advise in a lot of situations. We're going to give you the good, the bad, potentially the ugly, hopefully not too much of that. And then at the end, we're going to describe how we can help you if you'd like to engage a little bit further and a little bit more about the platform. So just talking about Acquire.com, the artist formerly known as Mike Require Inc. We've been around for 4 years. I remember Andrew Gazdick, your CEO, who I'm sitting in for today, he sent me the first email in I think it was June 2020 or something, when I was working in private practice and I was representing him and a few other ventures, talking about he wanted to make a startup marketplace that literally just introduces a buyer and a seller, and that's it. Since then, we've obviously come a long way, but that was the initial concept that we continue to iterate on and improve upon every day. We've served 100+ countries. We've transacted 1,500. There's over 1,000 deals sold that we've either taken some part on. That's either advising, enabling, introducing, brokering, all that stuff. Which that I think most impressive part is that it equates to $500 million, $500 million in closed transactions. That's a lot. I mean, that takes a long time to do, no matter how big the transactions are. So I'm particularly proud of that number. I think that most people at this company are, and we really come to work with passion to make sure we continue to enable that growth. Then finally, we have 400K registered buyers, 400,000 registered buyers, which means that if you're a seller, you get the eyeballs on your listing that I don't think anyone else can really match. And then if you're a buyer, I mean, we obviously have sellers and potential targets all over the place for you. So we help both sides of the table pretty efficiently in that regard. So anyway, I'm going to do the intros here in a second to my two colleagues who are in squares number 1 and 2, but I wanted to quickly introduce the team here. This is all the team that's not with us on the critical call, but they're watching it from home and or internal Slack as well. This ranges from product people to devs to customer support to marketing to sales and sort of everything in between. And we live and breathe transactions all day, every day. We see thousands. We like to think that we've seen every little esoteric intricacy that could exist. So yeah. We live M&A, and we love it too. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce the man behind door number 1, my colleague, Rainier Nanquil.
What's up, everyone? Good to see a lot of familiar names from the last few webinars that I took part of. My name's Rainier. I'm one of the in-house M&A advisors here at Acquire.com. I have over a decade of experience in M&A, capital markets, and investment sales. I've been part of over $1 billion of deal volume, sourced, analyzed, brokered, seen all kinds of good deals, bad deals, everything in between. Previously, I was at Empire Flippers. Previous to that, Cushman & Wakefield. Previous to that, Marcus & Millichap. My goal is to help my clients get the best price, best terms, and best transaction experience possible. With that, I'll pass the mic over to my colleague, Paul Kelley.
Thank you, Rainier. Hey, everyone. It's amazing to see, the geographic locations, everyone coming in. It's super exciting to see. And every time I see that stat that James just went over with the over 400,000 registered buyers, I mean, from doing this for, over 15 years, that is so incredibly powerful. my background, 15 years doing deals. I started out in Main Street, managing a Main Street brokerage for about a decade, and then had my own firm here in town called Synesis Advisors, which is still thriving, and joined the team here in early 2021, and super excited to continue to refine the way we expeditiously help you guys get deals done.
Right on. Well, thank you guys. Again, I work with these two pretty closely almost every day. I lean on them for a lot. So yeah, I'm happy to do, I'm excited to do this webinar and so in which I get to showcase their knowledge and the depth of their experience as well. I bounce tons of questions off them. I personally know that they can add extreme amount of insight to pretty much any deal you put in front of them. So again, while you're here today, I'll take some deals. I just want to kind of recap the deals we're looking at. We consider these our biggest and best SaaS. Again, the movement of the company right now is we're moving up market to larger, more complex SaaS deals. We're consider ourselves experts in SaaS, and we have deep expertise in SaaS, no matter where it's located. That could be, here, Canada, Europe, Southeast Asia, wherever. We deal almost exclusively in SaaS, and we have a lot of value to add there, I like to think. The ones that we're going to show today, they're pre-vetted and they're recommended and sometimes actually advised by our advisors. What that means is that we have an advisory arm to the business where we actually have an assigned advisor to the listing and to the startup/target, where we help them out with coaching, negotiation, preparation, expectation setting, legal, and then down to closing and escrow. And then after which, there's about 5 deals we'll get through. Hopefully we have time for all 5. But regardless, we'll make some time, 5-10 minutes at the very end for some Q&A. So without further ado here, let's go ahead and take a look at a deal. Okay, so start at the bottom. Okay, deal number 1. It's a SaaS startup. Like I mentioned, we're really focused on SaaS here. Obviously want to showcase the best ones we have, so we'll start with this. So I'll just go ahead and read it off. A lead generation platform for businesses to generate and build email lists, 100% organic traffic. Okay, so let's scroll through the listing here. I wanted to show a few things just before I pass it over to these guys. This one's cool because it has this Google Analytics connected, which is another feature we have. We have an API directly to Google Analytics, so you can see traffic, users, incline, downcline, bounce rate, average session duration, all nicely laid out like that for you, in both a sort of cell format and a graph format. But the first thing that comes to mind when I take a look at this guy is right here. So you can't have these numbers be the exact same, the multiples, because revenue is just always going to be higher than profit, or excuse me, it can't be equal. However, this is pretty good. I mean, if it's that close in the multiples, that means that their margin is very high, which if you take a look down here, and again, this is going to be on almost every listing you look at, the 4 basic financial metrics. This is pretty good. That makes for every 72K to 23K in top line, they make 611 bottom line. So just a slightly under 100K less, which is really, really solid. So anyway, that's what I noticed when I first look at this. Rainier, I think that you are actually advising on this. Like I just mentioned, our advisory team comes in on certain deals, and Rainier I believe is on this one. So maybe if you want to come in here, Rainier, and we can kind of go back and forth between you and Paul.
Sure thing. Yeah, I'm quarterbacking this deal. I like it. I'm going to talk highly of it, of course, but just looking at it from a buyer's perspective, first thing I gravitate to is the multiple. So 4.1x of profit, 3.5x of revenue. That quickly shows me as a buyer that this seller is motivated and serious about selling in a timely manner. And if I look at the other things that you scrolled past, James, it's the multiple, the high margin, it's 85% profit margin. So right there, it's already hitting a lot of the fundamentals that I look for as a buyer. It's already a good thing that it's SaaS, it's growing, and it's profitable. It's another great thing that it's an 85% profit margin. So it's strong there. The growth rate that we saw in the very bottom is 30%. So this is year over year growing very quickly. Another thing I noticed, financing, it's bootstrapped. So it's a small team, very hands-off business, highly automated business. This is great for someone that's looking for a lifestyle type of business, very passive. And if you scroll up to the top, all of the traffic is organic from Google. There's no marketing, there's no professional SEO being done. It's all organic growth from the marketing aspect. And what this business does is it extracts data from various social media platforms and quickly builds email lists. So overall, this hits a lot of fundamentals that I look for: strong multiple, profitable, year-over-year growth, SaaS. The one thing that I would, if I were to play devil's advocate and point out a couple things, the history, was founded June 2022. So a lot of buyers on our platform, they like to see at least 3 years of history, because if something's growing at a fast rate, eventually there's going to be a time where it evens out or might go down. So you need to figure out as a buyer how to quantify and limit your downside risk when taking on a business that's growing so rapidly. That being said, I'll pass the mic over to my colleague, Paul. What do you think?
Hey, thanks, Rainier. This looks really nice. I think that the items that I would want to really understand, having it full, this high automation is fantastic. That's why we get into SaaS, to have the robots do the work for us. But really, how much is the owner contributing on a weekly basis to the business? And really, what are they doing, day in and day out? And why that's important is, if you sell 100% of the business, the owner, has a short transition and leaves, and obviously you'll be left scrambling if the owner is, majorly involved and you weren't aware to the extent of that involvement. Other than that, I mean, it's the team size again, that kind of akin to the same thinking. What is the overall team size? Yeah, this looks good. I mean, I would want to uncover that first. There's another question that was in the chat around unpacking the financials, and how we operate here is when we do full recasted financial statement, we have all the month over month, trailing 12. So request the information, and all of that is accessible through the platform. And great question.
Cool. And I'm trying to keep tabs on all these questions that come in, but it's kind of hard when I have my screen shared. So if I miss any,
it just happened to pop up right there in front of me, so I wasn't doing anything extra special.
Oh, nice. What do you guys think about the customer concentration here? I mean, I feel like this is pretty good for a business that is more of a lifestyle business. I don't know if either of you guys have any thoughts. Let me know. My take is that it's pretty solid. There's not going to be too much dependence on any one person.
Right. It's pretty diverse. It's still going to be a good question to ask the seller. If there's any big clients that make up a good chunk of the revenue, you want to know that off the bat.
Yeah, and then rule of thumb is, if any one customer represents more than 10% of the revenue, that is a flag you should be chasing down and understanding. It's not always a detriment. I mean, it could be 10 years running, day in and day out. That's awesome. That's an annuity. But understanding the relationship with those customers is important. And again, back to the owner, if it's an owner relationship with that customer and the owner leaves, that's also something you should uncover.
Yeah, I just got that question from Howard. The annual growth rate is based on financials, but the Google Analytics is based on metrics like users online. So this is a financial metric as opposed to analytical one. And then I was gonna ask, what do you guys think about the fact that it's all organic, but it's still doing great? Like, does this opportunity for a sales and marketing play? In my mind, I feel like we could just add a little bit of marketing and you just further accelerate both top line and bottom line.
Yeah, for me, it's tons of upside. So with having organic traffic, that's awesome. Someone that's a buyer that has sales and marketing experience, you should be salivating at this opportunity. Every time there's someone that has a business that they're just having word of mouth, or they just put something up and it's organically growing over the last couple of years, there's tons of potential here for a lot of these sophisticated buyers that have proper sales and marketing experience, and more importantly, dollars to spend and grow on the business.
Nice. Well, any last comments? I think we're sitting pretty well right here on this one.
No, I think it's a nice business. Definitely, I would be happy to review this more and go into the hood.
Rainier, do you have a shameless plug to add? Or
it's a motivated seller. Reach out to him. He's a great guy. He's always willing to jump on a call and answer questions. All of your due diligence documents are uploaded there as well. So I highly recommend reaching out to this. This is going to sell quick.
All right, that's our shameless plug of the day.
Yeah, and one closing. I did see, the reason for selling was other. So that is something I'd want to understand is, what is other?
Cool. And then Rodman, I just saw your question. It's only brackets. There's only such a few options you could use for customer range. So it's going to be something you want to confirm in due diligence. I realize that 100 to 1,000 is pretty wide. So definitely a due diligence item.
Good feedback.
Let's go to the second here. So this is a SaaS startup based in Delaware. Honestly, more likely incorporated in Delaware. There's very few startups that are actually located in Delaware. That's about the place where 95% of most tech companies incorporate these days. Looks like it's data as a service platform, caters to B2B customers. I'm just going to cruise through it and see if I have any thoughts off the top of my head. I was going to look at this. This is something that we often include. This is pre-approved for financing. That means it already has a term sheet from Boopos that the buyer can leverage when they're purchasing it. And it will, the note or the debt will get paid off for future cash flows of the assets that the buyer ends up purchasing. So Boopos acts really quickly from submission to underwriting. It's usually less than a week. And it's a pretty good option for companies like this that have some sort of an ARR component. So looking at this, it's where we've ascended in the deal value range a little bit, up to 9 mil from a little bit less than that in the last one. What I noted last time is pretty similar here. That's pretty good in terms of profit margin. I like to see that. And yeah, so, I also like to see this, been around for a little bit. But Rainier, not to keep leaning on you too much. However, I think you're advising this one too, so you probably have the best idea of what's going on if you want to begin the convo.
Yep, I could jump in here. So I'm also the lead broker on this deal as well. So if I was private equity, I would be salivating at this deal. The multiples, again, shows that the sellers are motivated, willing to do a deal in a timely fashion. Year over year growth, it's 5%. So it's steady over 4 years of history. Strong profit margin again here, 3.8 million in top line revenue, 2.5 million in profit. That's a 66% profit margin. Again, private equity, they love steady growing businesses, highly profitable businesses. Again, 66% on this one. And it's bootstrapped. So these sellers, 2 founders that have been in the industry and part of the business for quite some time. And when I talk about private equity salivating, it hits their sweet spot. They typically look for 1 to 5 million ARR. Their clientele is B2B. It's US based. There's SBA financing available on this deal as well. So it checks a lot of the fundamentals that I preach over and over and over again on these webinars. If I were to point out a couple things or play devil's advocate, there's in the clients, if you look at the bottom, it's I think 10 to 100. You want to make sure that there's no client concentration risk. The other thing is the contracts are annual basis. You want to know if what the percentage is if from the monthly contracts and why most of them are annual. And then you also want to understand the competitor landscape. This is a highly niche industry. You want to know what is required for someone to compete in this type of business. And you also want to ask if the founders are open to maybe providing some training, something for the next couple months post-transaction in case it's highly specialized. But overall, if I was private equity, I'd be salivating at this deal.
Yeah, Paul, how about you?
Yeah, it's I would want to understand the competitors, the competitive situation. It looks, understanding this, the team and the ability to scale and the it's been around for 3+ years, so that's solid. It's got that continuous growth. That's solid. I think my biggest concern with this is, or not concern, but what I'd want to understand is really what is the because of how fast everything's moving with technology and AI, particularly, what is the competitive landscape and is there any threats there and how can I mitigate those threats?
Cool.
And then also understanding if the reason for selling is, they're starting something new. Is it in the same space or is it something completely different? And then, again, like I think someone had mentioned earlier, what would they be willing to do through a transition? And the last part is, would they be willing to be open to various deal structures? If it's a competitive space, it wouldn't necessarily make me walk away from it. However, I may want to mitigate some of that risk by structuring a deal such that there was some shared risk, creating an earn-out or some sort of a contingent structure. But this looks good.
That's a great point. I think at the risk of stating the obvious, the asking price, it's not like, buying just a widget at the store, right? These asking prices are composed of several different things: cash at close, seller financing, earnouts, indemnification holdbacks, all sorts of stuff. So like Paul mentioned, sometimes in order to share in the risk a little bit, they'll have the seller agree to, like, for example, a $3 million earnout and then a $6 million cash at close. So the $3 million of the $9 million is contingent upon some sort of future performance. So again, lots of ways to chop up the risk on these, and experienced buyers will typically do that, and we can help coach on that as well. And then sorry, go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, and I was just going to mention, when you do see listings with that are pre-qualified for financing, whether it be SBA or BUPOS or any other source, keep in mind that is a first level. We vet them, but the bank's underwriting them, and so that is a indication to a potential acquirer that somebody else has already kind of run these numbers and underwritten it, so they're willing to loan on it. So that should be a very good indication to you as an acquirer.
Got it.
Right. And if I could jump in here, someone asked a good question in the chat. Is the seller only open to selling to a private equity firm? The seller is open to selling to any buyer. The reason I say private equity is this hits a lot of their mandates that they look for. But if you're an independent operator, if you have a partnership, if you're part of a family office, if you're a public company, we work with all types of buyers. If you have a good offer, reach out. We're willing to make a deal with any type of buyer. Yeah,
and you can be competitive with private equity. Don't let that be a deterrent. I would say set yourself aside by moving quickly, doing what you say, showing up and being prepared, and you're going to be in the top percentage.
Yeah. And if I could add to that as well, Paul, that's a good point in that I recommend to buyers to get a call with the founders and get a deep understanding of why they're selling and try to get on a personal level. See why they're selling, what their time frame requirements are, how much cash up front they require. If you can get a deep understanding on a personal level why they're selling, you can oftentimes beat out these private equity firms, family office, public companies that are competing. If you can just get to know them one-on-one on a personal level and hit all of their goals, if it's price, if it's timing, if it's cash up front. Oftentimes I see a lot of independent operators beat out private equity because they can get a one-on-one personal level. From there, be competitive. So that's a good point.
I agree 100%. And you'll see that the founders that really care about their business, they care about the legacy, they care about what continues after them. So it's not always, I'd say it's almost never always about the headline number. It's about the total consideration. And part of that is the continuity of the service they're providing.
And I had two things. I saw Matt Selby in the chat. I'm trying my best to stay alive and answer these questions, by the way. So don't everyone get mad at me at once. But these are net profit. These are denominated in net profit when it says profit, not gross. And these do not establish any sort of SDE. You'd get that in the recasted financials, which any seller should be happy to provide for you. And then typically when you have access to the listing, all the documents will go here. So all the non-public information goes right where I have my mouse right here. So anyway, and then my last little point on this, I'd be curious to know what the business model is like. Looks like there's several different arms based primarily on annual contracts. And like Rainier said, if he had one bone to pick, it'd be right here. The customer range isn't quite as wide. So how much of that money is based on one person? How much of it is based on services? Is it pretty evenly distributed throughout? Much of annual contracts? All good questions that I'd like to ask. So anyway, I think we're good there. You guys any more points, plugs, comments? Good.
Yeah, okay. Great deal. Reach out to the sellers. Again, this is gonna fly off the shelves without being biased.
Right on. Okay, so that's 2 out of 5. Let's pop over to number 3. Okay, so yeah, a SaaS startup again. Again, that's our specialty. So we like to showcase them, and we like to have a lot of under advisement. This is a SaaS-based digital marketing agency helping physicians and medical groups stand out online. We've descended a little bit into the asking price range now. We went from, I think, around like 2 or 3 up to 9. Now we're down to 1.2. The revenues and the profits are a little bit further away on this one, which is totally fine. I mean, this is still a pretty solid number, not an insignificant amount. It's profitable. Looks like last month was pretty strong as well. Let's see what else we got. And this one, oh, I did want to highlight this. This is kind of cool. You can integrate your QuickBooks directly into the platform. So this seller has taken their QuickBooks to the API that we have, and it'll show everything going back to May 2022 in a P&L format, and then you can track it via a graph too. So there's a visual representation. So anyway, let's kick this off. Paul, you want to start this one since Rainier started the last two ones, and none of us are advising on this listing. So just if anyone's curious.
Yeah, I mean, this looks lovely. I love the healthcare space, and here's why. If you can get into the healthcare space, it's healthcare like any other, universities and any kind of big industry. They're so slow to integrate. So if you can get in, they're super sticky. However, with healthcare, there's also other, HIPAA requirements. So I'd want to understand they even mentioned it here about the HIPAA stuff. So understanding like the legal complexities of their offering to this industry. And it, for me, it's not something that's a worry. It's more of like, wow, if it is a barrier to entry and they've already accomplished that, then that's an extra a bonus point there. So yeah, I mean, that was the number one thing. I think this is a super sticky industry. The price is right. They're clearly already looking to industry multiples because they say it right at the beginning of the listing. So I think this is a very it seems a bit rich, but I don't want to understand the tech more. Maybe they're hedging some value on the technology piece as well. So understanding what the tech is, if it's third party, if it's their own proprietary, and understanding the healthcare legalities.
Yeah, and Paul, just like you mentioned, Paul mentioned this is sticky. Healthcare is typically sticky. And then this is a really powerful sentence that you want to confirm too. Current clients have been on board for multiple years on average, and our attrition rate is extremely low. So the seller is obviously selling that component that Paul just mentioned. Rainier, how about you? What strikes you as when you look through this?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. If you scroll to the top, I'm looking at the multiples. Yeah. So it says asking price reasoning, asking price industry standard is 3 to 5x of EBITDA. So they're asking 6.3. It's always worth it to ask the seller, hey, how did you come up with your asking price? What is your valuation methodology? Hear straight from them instead of wondering, okay, why is it priced on this end of the range or this end of the range? Ask the seller. They're always happy to break down what their asking price valuation methodology is and what type of offers they're open to. Typically, if it's more aggressive on the higher end, they're usually open to seller financing, holdbacks, earnouts, different type of creative structures. So just ask the seller. Next thing that I look at is the date founded, May 2014. So a business that's been around almost a decade or a little over a decade. That's a really good thing. They've been around for a while. They've got product market fit. They're still cranking. If you scroll down a little bit more, you look at revenue, profit, last month's gross revenue, net profit. So these are all good numbers. It's profitable. If you scroll down a little bit more from there, yeah, you're good. Okay. So if you look at the customers, again, you want to see if there's customer concentration risk. Is it closer to the 10 number or is it closer to the 100? Those are all good questions. And then the growth rate. So it's over 10 years old and then it's a -2 growth rate. Figure out what's happening. Ask the seller, okay, what's going on? Is there a certain reason that it's declined over the last couple of years or just 1 year? Why did that happen? What do you think we need to do to get it back to growth? Then they'll know. They'll tell you exactly, hey, if I had more marketing dollars, or hey, if I had a sales team, if I upgraded technology, whatever it is, ask the seller, they know. And one last thing that I'll point out before I pass the mic, if you go
hopefully it's one I just spotted. The prices have not been increased since 2001. So there's margin there, and that 2% could have probably been mitigated if they would have just risen prices to the cost of living.
That's a great point, Paul. Yeah, I mean that's a classic add-on right there, or a revenue driver right there. I mean, the price increase.
So that's a great one to point out when looking at any business is asking the founders, hey, when has been the last price increase? And how was it received? That's important, because if it was raised in 2001 and he had, 100 people screaming, then I can understand why it's been so long. But typically what we see is that they haven't raised prices and then they go and raise prices and no one says this thing. So that's a low hanging fruit right there.
Yeah, that's a good one. The one that I was going to point at is the reason for selling. So it says starting a new venture, lifestyle change, partner or family needs, health reasons. Again, I always like preaching, get to know the seller on a personal level, get to know why they're selling. Because if it's partner or family needs, health reasons, lifestyle change, these are serious things. That means that they're in a have to sell situation. So really get an understanding of, okay, well, what are you looking for in an ideal buyer? What is your cash up front requirements? If it's an emergency, then they
Yeah.
need
What do you
cash
need?
within
Yeah.
a certain period of time. So ask those questions, and like I say, get to know them on a personal level, and that'll often help you win the deal.
Nice, yeah. Things I like about this, just to sort of piggyback and probably just parrot what you guys said in some instances. I like this in the sense that, I mean, that's including, 2020, 21, all the stimulus checks, all the inflation the United States have gone through. So that by itself screams that there could be a pretty quick low hanging fruit to get revenue up a little bit. And then I love the date counted, right? 10 years. The growth rate doesn't really concern me as much, just based on the fact how long it's been in business. There's probably some story and there's probably a fix there. So like, when I look at these listings with Rainier, a lot of times they'll say one man's trash is another man's treasure. This could easily be someone's treasure, right? Increase prices, figure out what happened in the declining growth rate and just fix that. And if it's fixable, fix it. So anyway, I like this one a lot.
I want to call out one of the questions Mr. Shaw pointed out here, and it said it looks like this is an agency model where there's partial income coming through the true SaaS and part agency, so more of like a job shop. So if you see this type of a scenario, ask the question, and what I would want to understand is, do you have your your financials separated such that I can see what revenues are coming in from each of those channels? And if that is in fact the case and it's clean, then you would thereby go to our multiples report and apply multiples for each of those different scenarios, and then come to a happy medium there.
Cool. Well, any last thoughts on these before we swap over to deal number 4?
And 10 years is a life is forever and a day in this world, man. That's a good run.
Okay. All right. Here we're going to pop to deal number 4. So I believe this one just went live this morning, actually. So another SaaS startup incorporated in Delaware, only personalized outreach tool using real-time Google Ads data to deliver high-impact outreach. A little bit of, well, actually, maybe a medium asking price, depending on what we're looking at today. I'm looking at the multiples. Still generating a good amount of profit, not quite as profitable as some of the other ones we've looked at, which for the record are extremely profitable. So I don't want to make too hard of a comparison there. It's been around since April 2021. And let's look at the last few years. Okay, so it's got the Google Analytics connected, always super helpful. It'll give you a quick inline perspective of what's going on. Looks like it has quite a few customers, so hopefully not too much diversification, or hopefully a lot of diversification, excuse me. Healthy amount of ARR, always helpful. It looks like it's growing at a pretty steady clip. It's been in business for how long? Yeah, about 3 years. So pretty solid year over year. It's like that still. So I know this one a little bit, so I can go into it. I know the founder really well. The reason for selling, I think, is really compelling. It's 3 partners, I believe. One, it has a health issue. They've aligned on that, and they want to sell. Sometimes that doesn't always quite happen, especially when there's 2 or 3 owner-operators that may disagree on things. So there's alignment there. I know that their revenue is really, really on the way up based on a more recent offering. It's more of a service offering. So they're growing pretty quickly. And what it does, it's kind of like I don't want to compare it directly to its competitor, but it's kind of like a SpyFu or a SEMrush, where it allows you to spy on your competitors' AdWords and what they bought on Google Ads. But it also combines that with an outreach tool, which it gives it a competitive edge. Basically, you can take the data that you gather based on your research and use it as an outreach to actual companies that are using those AdWords. So anyway, small team, I know, so nothing that you would need to replace or bankroll too much. It's 2 or 3 founders and I believe an offshore team. And then always good to see subscription business to business, which means there's going to be higher value contracts, subscriptions, and there's going to be, like I mentioned, some recurring revenue, which is quite a bit in this case. So anyway, whichever one you guys want to start, I think we're at Rainier 2, Paul 1. So maybe Paul, you want to even it out?
I could start. Yeah. So you were showing the graph earlier, and good to point that out because these are talking points that you can bake into your conversation. Hey, what happened in October that, were you trying something out? Were you testing a new marketing campaign? So these are good. There's good intel for which to base your questions. And, you really want to have an agenda put together when you go into that first meeting. And that could be a good first piece of that. The other parts that I'd want to understand here is how are they getting this information? And is it, I know, sometimes there's terms of service issues. So I just want to understand if I'm looking at acquiring this, what risk are there potentially out there with the way that we're operating? And then also, if I know they're going on, for reasons, unfortunate reasons, but if I were to, I'd ask them the golden question, if I gave you $1 million to, spend on the business, how would you spend it and how would you scale?
Yeah, great. All great points. How about you, Rainier? Do you have anything off the cuff?
Yeah, the one, if you could scroll down to the financial snapshot a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
So if you look at the TTM gross revenue, I think a little bit up from there, or sorry, down from there. My bad. Other direction. Sorry.
909K.
Yeah, 919K. Well, anyways, the 1.4 ARR as well. These are sorry, I was at the top. So these are good numbers because when I was looking at the other deal previously, I was like, hey, private equity salivating on it because the 1 million to 5 million TTM revenue is where they jump all day. Here it's at 900,000, so you're just under their typical mandate, so you're not competing against the typical private equity buyer. So this is good because you got less competition at this price point and this TTM revenue. So that's one thing that I would notice. The second thing is reason for sale. So if you scroll down a little bit, it says lifestyle change, partner or family needs, health reasons. Just like I said on the last listing that we were looking at, get to know why the sellers are selling. Oftentimes, obviously price is important, but oftentimes other parts of the deal will help you win it out and address and hit the founder's goals, especially if it comes to timing and cash up front. So it says one of the founders has a family health matter requiring their attention and financial support, which an exit enables. So again, understand, get to know the sellers on a personal level and why they're selling. And just kind of everything that James and Paul said, it's overall good opportunity to just hit the market today. So everyone here is really seeing this for the first time and has a fair shot at the deal.
Yeah, I think I love this first sentence here. I mean, it's awesome. They didn't like what the tools were available to them, so they went and built their own. I mean, necessity being the mother of all invention. I love it. So I would open with that. It's like, so what sucked about the other things you were using and why is yours better? Why'd you make this better? But that's an awesome first opening line there.
Yeah. I think it's a product that is used pretty frequently with marketing agencies, freelancers, other marketing service providers, which lends itself to the B2B component, which it's a matter of preference. I like B2B companies. I prefer them to B2C, but it's all about your buy box. So anyway, I think it's a great opportunity, one that's growing, one that with that growth might be priced significantly higher in the future and maybe had things gone differently in their personal lives, it might have, been grown for a few more years before that. But
yeah. And also one other thing under the key assets there, they list sales processes. So understanding, do they have a proprietary, sales process that they're running? Or do they have a sales team? I know Mr. Shell asked again, do they have a sales team or how are they getting these clients or is it organic? So perhaps they have a software they've built that handles a lot of that, and that would be a huge value add.
Yeah, I spoke with the founder this morning, and he mentioned that their customer acquisition is essentially dialed in. So that's one thing I did want to mention is that they have a pretty solid and solidified plan for growth and in processes for growth.
Awesome.
Well, I want to leave like 10-ish minutes maybe for the Q&A. So we got one more that we're going to take a peek at before then. So, okay. Behind door number 5, let's see that, is a startup to our neighbors in the north. I wanted to add that we see a lot of Canadian SaaS startups. We transact a lot of them. I know Paul personally closed a massive deal last summer with a Canadian SaaS company and a US buyer. So the cross-border nature of it is something we can definitely handle, should you be interested. This is a little more, this is about like, this is like the silver medal of asking prices we've seen today. 7 million, pretty high. Looks like it has, let's see, it's not quite as profitable as the other ones. But again, profitable, this isn't an insignificant number. One thing I wanted to take a look here is this is important. So prices in USD, in case you're wondering, all financials presented in Canadian dollars. So if you're going to take a look at this, be aware that that's a thing. We've seen deals kind of sputter because that hasn't been clearly communicated at the front. I think Rainier is probably face palming himself after that. He had an experience like that last year. And then I wanted to take a look at the QuickBooks. This is another neat feature we have. I believe a previous one had it, but I want to showcase it again. Is that you can just plug your QuickBooks straight in here, cell format, graph format, and you can take a really quick look at the profit and loss. I saw somebody in the chat mention ad hoc expenses earlier. It's a great point. If you see 1 month jump by 30-40%, that's always something to look into in DD. So just a quick little pointer there. But I think maybe Rainier, it's your turn to take a look. If you want to kind of kick us off, and then we'll have about 5-7 minutes on this, and then we'll go to Q&A.
Sure thing. First, I'll point to the elephant in the room. It's the profit and revenue. So there's always a story of why that's skewed. And again, this business is profitable. Anytime there's a profitable SaaS business, there's still interest in it. You just want to get an understanding of asking the seller, what's your valuation methodology? How did you come up with this asking price? Again, and just ask, because if there's a story on why the profit margin is what it is, great. Now you're not guessing, if it's in range or what type of offer to potentially shoot over. Next thing I look at is date founded. So October 2002, tons of history. So it's over 2 decades old. It's very impressive that, they've had product market fit. They're still around. They're still kicking. Get an understanding of the ebbs and flows of any years that it's went up, down, stagnant. Get a really good idea of what they're facing in the competitor landscape and the industry as a whole. And the other thing that I would go to is the reason for sale. Again, I love going to this section. Starting a new venture, retirement. Again, retirement, that's a significant life event. Set up a call, talk to the seller, figure out why they're selling, what's important to them, get to know them on a personal level. I love preaching that over and over and over again. So those are the main points that I gravitate to. Paul, what do you think?
What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, I love the e-learning space. I'd want to understand what they're, the space is, going hard and scaling big. So what are they doing to kind of attach themselves to that scale? And then you touched on what is the exit, strategy, motivation? What does the operational team look like? This is a solid space. I think that can really go well with the right organizational structure. So I'd want to understand that a bit more. But yeah, long standing. That's a long run as well. So this is, I think, very attractive. The last thing is understanding any other growth. The same question I had for the last founder. If you were to be given $1 million, how are you investing that into scale this company? Because I think there's a lot of different ways to go.
Nice. One thing that came out to me, or stood out to me rather, is if you look at the profit to revenue, it's not quite as strong as some other ones that we've seen. But if you kind of look at it holistically, and let's see, the CEO's retirement prompt sale, okay, got it. That more or less describes that he's going to be the main key person in there. He probably has both, operational and corporate say so. And then I'm looking at the financing, which is angel investment and bootstrapped. And if you're not familiar with angel investment, they typically don't write massive checks. It's usually a pre-seed round. And that means that there was no investment capital taken after that. So what I'm kind of gathering is, if I look at this, and again, he's retiring, is that there's probably a single person who is the super majority shareholder. He's probably controls the board, and he's probably the CEO. I'm kind of imagining an owner operator that controls everything. So my point being is that he's probably paying himself a decent salary, or a rather, a hefty, handsome salary on top of this profit. So what I would do if I was looking at this, I was considering, buying a job, buying a company that's going to replace my day job, I would get recasted financials immediately and get the SDE to see what I'd actually be making. It's possible that with, this guy's paying himself $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, and that can be factored in as an add back, and therefore you could potentially pay yourself that too if you're going to be buying the job and be actively involved in business. So I think that's a big thing to take away, is that sometimes if you get recast financials, it paints a much different picture than if you're just looking at the raw revenue versus profit. And that's typically involved when there's a couple key founders. We had one that Rainier's helping out with, where their SDE was significantly different than their normal financials, because there's 3 operators that were both all paying themselves, not like an exorbitant amount, but they were paying themselves a pretty hefty salary for the day-to-day, which they deserve because they're running this company day-to-day. So that's my last thought there. Do you guys have any, again, it's obviously funded in 2002, so 22 years now. Any other points on this one before we head into a Q&A?
The point as it relates to the owner comp and making adjustments for that if needed, just to bring it down to normal, that could go both ways. Meaning, as James kind of illustrated, you could be, they could be paying themselves, $500K a year. Obviously, that's not what the level of comp for that role would be. So you need to get it down to normalized comp. You could also have somebody paying. We see it sometimes where they're paying themselves less than, because they're trying to preserve capital. So we would have to make a negative adjustment to bring it up to comp. So keep an eye out for that. Very good point to look out for.
Rainier, any last thoughts before we go to Q&A, either on this deal or the previous ones?
Yeah, that's good on my end. I'm glad you both brought up the SDE differential. That's the way that you unlock hidden value. So a lot of buyers are looking at these listings and they look at the TTM profit. By you signing an NDA, looking at the recasted financials and uncovering hidden value from, let's say, owner salary, and then adding it back, you're already improving the profit multiple there, uncovering hidden value that most buyers aren't going to uncover. So I'm glad you both brought that up.
Yeah, and just to for those that don't know and not familiar with the nomenclature, a recasted financial statement will often derive to a net profit number, as you'll see at the bottom of like a profit and loss statement. But then we'll also make the adjustments for any owner comp, any anomalies like non-recurring expenses or one-time extraordinary expense. You had to defend a lawsuit or something. That's obviously not a recurring expense in the business, but something that you'll want to adjust down, because I want to know as an acquirer, what's that business really throwing off to me when I take it on, because I have to prepare and plan. So, you want to go and normalize and make those adjustments. So seller's discretionary earnings is SDE.
Right on. Well, I'm going to unshare my screen real quick so we can just pop into some quick Q&A. Looks like we got like 8 minutes here. Let me kind of go through this. So let's kick off with this one. The seller says they've been reinvesting everything in the growth, and that's why their profit is low. How can I verify that? That's probably one for either you want to give a crack.
That does come up, and it's actually come up this week with me. And keep in mind when you're reviewing businesses that there's various levels of expertise, particularly financial expertise, with some of these founders, and you'll see sometimes that they're expensing, meaning that they're adding it to their profit and loss statement, an expense for new equipment or something, a capital expense that should be on their balance sheet. So in that same thinking, there's often not exact correct ways of accounting. So you do want to go under the hood and understand some of that. And there could be a lot of adjustments there that should be on the balance sheet that you'll recognize or that your bookkeeper or accountant could uncover. So do the work, dive in.
Yep, dive in, look at the P&L, compare it to the recasted financials, figure out what in the add backs or expenses that they added back to the bottom line are justified. And again, you can always bring up the conversation. What's this expense? What's the expense? Is it normalized? Can I expect this in the following years? What is this big marketing expense? Was that an experiment? How did that experiment go? Just ask all the questions and the sellers will have that conversation.
Right on. I have a few more, but I wanted to address a couple ones I saw below. in the chat, and hopefully I'm remembering that correctly. Someone asked about the loan to value of a Boopos loan. That's a great question. It's case by case. That's going to depend on the healthiness of the cohort analysis, what the revenue is looking like, just growth, typical underwriting process. But the maximum is going to be 80%. So there's going to be at minimum minimum, I guess, a 20% down payment. And then another quick one: what's the time frame typically to close deals? I hate to say it depends, but I am an attorney by trade, so I'm going to anyway. It can go anywhere from 15 days for really quick ones that are very straightforward pieces of technology, smaller deals where there's not a ton of complex assets, to anywhere from, let's say, 3 to 6 months for the most complex. And those are the large deals you're seeing. We do everything we can to truncate that, and we do a very good job of doing that. Sometimes just things out of our control will delay it. For example, lawyers get involved at the other end. They take a while. Sometimes if it's a pretty hefty and hot negotiation over terms, that eats up the time. So anyway, I would say anywhere from 15 days to 6 months. If it's a large deal, I would earmark it at about 4 months, and we can speed up the process quite a bit. So anyway, let me ask you guys a few more. So let's see.
The second from the bottom there is 1055. Does Acquire have any resources or tutorials available for first-time buyers to become better informed?
Yeah, that's a good one. We have a free course. We have a free course. You could reach out to any of us. Again, email any of us. Rainier at Acquire, James at Acquire, Paul at Acquire. We're all here to help you have the best transaction possible. So
in addition to Andrew Gazdecki making the videos on start to finish, you could learn how to do the entire transaction. So yes is the answer.
And then Roger, maybe if you want to drop in that micro acquisitions link into the course.
Yeah, it's there already. Yep.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Thanks, Roger.
And then we got about 3 minutes till noon. I'm sure everyone's getting hungry. So we'll do one more. So let's see. Are startups that have only been operating for a year or so always high risk? What do you guys think?
Rainier, you take the first crack at that.
For me, I'm a risk averse person. So again, I always try to have at least 3 years of history. That way it shows history of going up and down stable. If it's got a year or less, again, it's not problems that kill deals, it's surprises. If you're doing something one way and then the buyer takes over and does something else, you have that risk of it, stagnating growth or going the opposite direction. So it's not a bad thing. It's are you willing to take that risk? Can you quantify that risk? And do you have the toolkit to be able to continue that growth? So that's my answer.
And what's your risk profile? I mean, are you hedging the family home on this? And you should be more conservative. But with some of these businesses we're seeing, they scale so quickly and they're not stopping. But what you'll find is that these founders are self-realized and they realized, whoa, I've taken this about as far as I can, and they're willing to hand the baton to the next party that's going to benefit from that. So I would be cautious and definitely go under the hood and make sure I'm doing my proper diligence, but I would not let that deter me. I'd get excited about that.
Right on, guys. Well, I think it's about time to wrap up. I'm just going to show one more component of a slide here. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Really appreciate it. And obviously, if you want to get the criteria or get deals like this, enter your criteria, sign up as a buyer. We have awesome programs in the product. Shout out to our entire product team and dev teams. You can literally search by deal range, so profit revenue range, verticals, certain keywords, and we'll hand deliver them programmatically to your inbox. So I think it's amazing. I'm a fanboy of our product team. So anyway, and then any questions going forward, like Rainier just mentioned, we're just first name at acquire.com. So James, Paul, Rainier at acquire.com. We answer a lot of questions. We like to answer questions. And so don't be shy. Feel free to hit us up if you're on the fence about signing up as a buyer or listing your company. Let us know, and hopefully we can give you some good information to tell you whether it's the right choice for you. So anyway, thank you everybody very much for coming. It's been a fun hour. We're gonna take off. And again, reach out at any time. We're acquire.com. And that's all I got.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Chris. Thanks, Mitchell. Thank all of you in the comments.
Yarrow, Roger, Howard, Chris. Thanks everyone for coming. See you next time.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Take care.
Peace.